And today we are going to talk something that's very seasonal, the prevention and hopeful treatment, more of the natural nature of fleas and ticks for your loved ones, not your wife and husband, but your pets. And we have our famous veterinarian, Dr. Colleen Smith from CHI on Main Street in Chattanooga. Been there many, many years, and she is the guru of Chattanooga for the more integrative approaches to your dogs and cats' health. So welcome to Vital Health Radio.
Thanks, Ed. It's great to be here.
Have we already hit the season that's really starting the epidemic of fleas and ticks?
Yes, for sure. I mean,
Okay.
it's starting early too because it's been so wet.
Mm-hmm. I got to ask the first question, and we have Fallon with us today from Nutrition World. Welcome, Fallon, to Vital Health.
Thank you.
Fallon and Stacy are two experts in the pet section at Nutrition World. But everybody that is in my common world, not Nutrition World's world, is running out and getting the things at the pet stores, which are the chemical preventions. Where do you stand on that?
So being that we're in the South and fleas and ticks are pretty bad, and with ticks you can also get those tick-borne diseases. So a lot of people are really worried. Lyme's is big, Ehrlichia, Anaplasma, all these different types of diseases are a problem in this area for sure. Though the most popular stuff on the market, though, has some serious side effects. So it's a really kind of on the fence issue for me, depending on my patients. Very lifestyle choices. If it's a little white fluffy dog sitting on your lap all day long, probably doesn't need a lot of flea and tick stuff. The big hikers, I have tons of clients that are hikers, climbers, that kind of thing. They're out in the woods all the time, and ticks are really bad. So they just kind of have to go with the chemicals, unfortunately.
Nothing natural could be that strong because nature would not make something that powerful, right?
True. Some kind of can do some like spray-ons or topicals if they do it really consistently, like every single time they go out. There are some good repellents out there, things with clove, wintergreen, garlic in it. But sometimes it's just not enough, especially if the tick burden is just too high and they have to do the chemicals.
And that's true of humans too. I'm a big fan, of course, of not using the DEET products for humans, but I do spray if I'm out in the spring and summer going through heavy duty woods. I will spray my clothes with those repellents where it's less harmful to me because it's not directly on my skin. Do dogs get diseases from ticks?
Yes, for sure, yeah.
They do.
They can get Rocky Man with spotted fevers over here now. Not only do dogs get Lyme's, but they can pass it to the owners, which is it's becoming a bigger and bigger problem. They do get ticks, and there's a lot of the seed ticks too, and those really seem to be repellent to or resistant to some of these flea and tick medications.
Now the seed ticks are the little tiny ones, right?
Tiny, yeah.
How many dogs do you have, Fallon?
12.
Wow, I did not realize. How many do you have, Dr. Smith?
I lost my 2 heart dogs last year, so I have a new puppy, and right now we're working on bonding and training. So we're starting from scratch.
So, which chemical? Is there a choice of better or least better, least worse?
I'm actually trying out some new stuff because I had this new dog, this new puppy, and my other ones. The most popular stuff on the market though is really tough on dogs, and it's the isoxalanur family, so sodolanners, fluorolanners, that's in everything. The NexGards, the Cordelios, Bravecto, all those things, Simparica, they all have it in there, and they're so neurotoxic.
Now, what does that mean, neurotoxic, when people are listening?
So that's how it works on the flea and tick. It actually disrupts the nervous system. They get these little mini seizures, and they die.
No, we're talking about the tick dying.
The tick and flea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's just
that's the problem is it has can have the same effect on your pet too. And we're seeing it more and more and more, and it worries me. And I tell people all the time, I'm kind of on the fence. And this is if you need, the heavy duty stuff, be very aware of this is a side effect, and I can't test for it. Are they going to have it or not? I don't know who's going to respond that way. Most do fine, but if some people are really really worried and they're purists, I tell them just not to touch it.
Yeah, it's kind of like the conversation of vaccines. I mean, there are people who take tons of them, and they don't seem to have a side effect. Then you got the other small group who has significant. What do you do for your pets, Fallon?
I changed my lifestyle when I ditched the chemicals. It's not easy to fight fleas and ticks without chemicals. It's not easy for me anyway. It's harder. It's easier for the dog's body, but I have to be very persistent. I have to wage war. I spray them every time they're going to be exposed. I spray them after they've been exposed With the things that we have at the store, Wonderside, mainly, it's largely essential oils. It's cedar woods and lemongrass and peppermint, and then just offensive to the parasite. And they work, but they only work while they're working. And it's not a spray and be done and hope for the best. And then I'm doing tick checks and flea combs, and I wage war in order to not use the chemicals, because my dogs are heavily exposed. They're swimming in creeks and they're running through fields every day. I've picked 4 or 5 ticks off of me this season already. It's just the lifestyle. So I don't stop fighting.
Well, I think most people, a lot of your clients would not be able to have the time and effort to wage war like Fallon does.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's really hard.
And I like Wonderside a lot because it does have some research behind it.
Uh-huh.
So they have done some research with the yard sprays and with the sprays that you can put on your dog in like large quantities, and the small sprays that you can I use it on myself.
I do too.
Oh, really?
I do too.
I use
Absolutely.
Wonderside. It's great. And treating the household to yourself, you can do the diatomaceous earth, borax powder, just sprinkling on the areas that they sleep to spend that time, vacuum it up, and you're going to really get a lot of the flea population in the house.
How effective is the chemicals, right?
They're, only as effective as you're putting it in the dog. I can't say it's 100%, but from their research, it's pretty close to 100%. They just don't have, the hard part too with the topicals is they may still be on the pet, they just may not attach to the pet. And for the chemicals to work, because they're ingested, they have to bite the pet anyway for it to work.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so for those orals, the treats that you give them with it in it, they have to bite the pet for it to kill the flea or tick.
Oh, I know I had a Bichon for years, a Muffin, and before I got my divorce, and every time I put Frontline, within 2 hours she would throw up a lot for 24 hours. I probably only did it 9 times in 9 years, but it was during the worst of the worst, and I would put it on, and of course it worked. And I used more natural things other than that 1 month that I did it. So that was a long time ago. Is Frontline still a popular one?
It is popular, but they know now the flea part of it is drought resistant. So I don't use Frontline at all.
Oh,
The
really?
tick part still works, but the flea part completely resistant. It's been on the market for over 20 years.
So they've mutated or evolved to handle that now.
Yep,
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, and those side effects, you see them all the time: vomiting, diarrhea, itchy skin, restless. They start to roll around,
Yes,
hair
exactly.
loss, and it's all just chalked up to the dog.
So
And
that's
there's a lot of-
neurological damage, or irritation, or whatever we want to call it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does any shampoos help in any way that you offer or you talk about?
Yeah, people will try flea shampoo, and we'll do it if we get a little puppy and I don't want to give them the chemicals. But flea shampoo, once it's dry, once the dog is dry, it's a nice clean dog for the fleas to jump right back on.
So it doesn't offer a
No,
day
it will
or two of
kill
protection.
the existing fleas, but it doesn't have a residual effect at all.
And not every shampoo will kill the fleas.
Yeah.
They can hold their breath and survive very well.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your clinic, because I think this is what kills me, and it doesn't really bother me anymore, but we've been in business 46 years. There's not a day that goes by that somebody doesn't walk in and say, when did y'all open? And this is true of all of us that are in a specialty type of business. So what makes your clinic different than the average Joe?
It comes down to, at functional medicine, we're looking at the root cause of things. So instead of the easy button medicine, antibiotics, steroids, that kind of stuff, constant over. I see so many chronic cases that they're on the same thing all the time, but with no relief whatsoever, no healing whatsoever. So we, step back, several steps back, find out what are the causes, what's the root causes of these diseases, and start from there. And nutrition, of course, your nutrition world is my main foundation that I talk to no matter what it is. People are like, my dog has cancer. Why are we talking about food? And I'm like, because that's the foundation. You're feeding an animal full of, kibble that's feeding that cancer. So we look at things a lot differently. We still do basic things. We still do some vaccines, but it's very judicial in how we do it.
I love that.
We'll still do x-rays on somebody that's hurt. We just still do surgeries and clean teeth, but we try to step back and, every animal is individually treated, how we work on their healing. Yeah.
And it goes back to, and it's very similar, as you and I and Fallon know, in the traditional medical field for humans, they don't train anyone in that field to ask the question, why? Now, they're great at helping eliminate some symptoms. A lot of times they take credit for the healing when in fact all they did was make us feel better while the body was doing its own job anyway. and then all of a sudden, wow, I'm glad I went because now I'm well. Well, 90% of the time, the drug didn't make you well. It allowed you to function well through the healing process. And so, got to talk about heartworms since we're back into that season also. How has heartworm gotten worse, better, or stayed the same over the past decade?
It's getting worse. There's actually, because of the flooding in the Mississippi River, they actually found heartworm-resistant mosquitoes.
Really?
So, or preventative resistant mosquitoes. So they're actually biting, and the heartworms are resistant to all the heartworm preventatives on the market right now. Wow. So, and it's moving over. I don't think it's quite this far over east yet, but it's definitely, the Alabama, Mississippi, Missouri areas. So it's a little tough, and I know a lot of people, it works like an antibiotic in the system too, which is another reason why I don't like it, is every time you give it to them once a month, it kills off the gut flora.
Does it?
Yeah, so
wow.
That makes it kind of a double whammy in the system, because dogs can have actually, a lot of them will have vomiting responses to it for whatever reason. And most of the stuff too, again, same thing as the flea and tick, when it's chewable, it's got a lot of other junk in it. They put food dye red 40 in there, which is very allergenic. There's propylene glycol to make it soft and mushy, and propylene glycol is like 1 carbon away from ethylene glycol, which is antifreeze. So there's a lot of extra chemicals when they put those chewables. Makes it easy for your dog to take, but the vehicle for the medicine is not hot, not good.
Now, weighing out risk is benefit. I'm going to put words in your mouth. I think if you have the little white fluffy puppy sitting on your couch all the time, probably risk is low.
Yeah, and we do look at it that way too. Lifestyle is a big thing, though we've had, indoor only dogs, I'm going to do air quotes, because it's sitting on, it literally has a pee pad in the house. It doesn't go anywhere. Mosquito got in the house though. We had a heartworm positive dog in the exact scenario. What are the chances of that happening again? Pretty low. So yeah, they can get away with it. And I usually just recommend, if you don't want to do heartworm preventative, and there's some things on the market as far as herbs that have wormwood in it, but you got to be careful with that because it can become very toxic. That actually can help treat, or preventative is for heartworms. But I recommend just a heartworm test every 6 months just to stay on top of it.
Heartworm test for those that don't, and for those who do treat?
So those who don't take a heartworm preventative, every 6 months.
Really?
If you do take a heartworm preventative, your pet, then once a year is fine for a heartworm test.
So you find, is the treatment still very harsh?
Yeah, imidacide is a cyanide product. So kill your dog, kill the heartworm. I don't use it. We have something called Plan B, not the best name, but there are actually 2 preventatives, actually heartworm preventatives on the market that are labeled as a heartworm treatment. So you can use them the exact same way as a heartworm preventative, and they will actually treat heartworms. And I find them much safer.
Much less toxic?
Less toxic. There's still the chemicals, but it's way less toxic than imidacide.
Oh. How long does the treatment last for a pet?
If you're doing the imidacide, it's you get an injection. You give them an injection, and it's 2 in the beginning and then 1 at the end of the month, and it's a pretty heavy duty amount of kill. Usually though, with heartworm preventative, if you're using that as a treatment, you're just giving it the same way you use it as a preventative, so it's once a month.
What happens to the heartworms when they die?
That's a big problem. They can become emboli, and emboli in the lungs, emboli in the vessels. So that's why we want to stay on top of it, because if they get pretty bad heartworm disease, those worms die off and they can get stuck somewhere and it can kill the dog. And we do see that even in healthy young dogs, we'll see them die of the heartworm disease post-treatment.
Now I know you're a purist, Fallon, and I am in parts of my life too. What do you do for your pets?
I use a product that we sell at the store that is largely herbal based. It has a maintenance and a cleansing schedule, so you can treat or prevent. I do that. The die-off is, if you're treating, the die-off is much slower, so you can detox the dog and really prevent that burden from a fast die-off. Also, I'm very cognizant of the temperatures and the life cycle of a mosquito, and I don't treat them when they're not at risk. Even here in the South, in the winter, it's too cold for mosquitoes. They don't need any of that when there's no risk.
Okay.
Well, actually, they're finding if it at least gets above 45 degrees, the mosquitoes will come out. And so if we have a couple of 45-degree weathers in January and February, then
it's done. Yeah.
I mean, if we were in Minnesota, I'd be like, totally, you can stop it for a couple months. But we've still had heartworm positive dogs that come through in the wintertime. So it's tough. Yeah. I mean, it's a thing that I think about too. People ask me if I use the regular heartworm preventative, and I'm kind of aiming towards not. So
Yeah. But again, you've got a pretty darn good treatment if it happens.
yeah.
And it's risk against benefit. And then testing every 6 months is not that big a deal.
No, it's not. It's not expensive. It's a cheap test, so I'd rather know and get on top of it.
Yeah, I
If
like
we get on
that
top of
idea.
it pretty fast. Yeah.
And I know a lot of veterinarians, like a lot of traditional medical human people, are kind of locked into a pattern and they're not really friendly with these conversations. You are very respectful of where people are, and that's where I just love the fact that you are here in Chattanooga. I came to see you way long ago, probably 20 years. I don't know how long you've been practicing.
Oh, I remember Muffin.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And you've always just had that attitude that I love, which is you don't have all the answers. You have a lot of answers, but you respect the wishes of your patients, and I think that's wonderful. Tell people where you're located.
We're at 918 East Main Street, it's on the south side. It's growing so much down there.
Yeah,
The housing down there is incredible. It's so much construction. We're still vibrating in our seats from construction near us. But yeah, we're downtown. We've been there for about 14 years, almost 14 years. It's great.
Well, I'm glad you're in an area that is coming up instead of going down.
Yeah, for
because
sure.
that is, my dad always said, the 3 keys to business is location, location, location. When you open there, it was the old Main Street.
Yeah, it was definitely the wrong side of the tracks, literally and figuratively. Yeah, we were on the wrong side of the tracks for sure. Yeah.
Well, for everybody, if you resonate with these kind of conversations, and if you're listening to Vital Health Radio, you probably do. But many people, even though our sales are doing quite well on pets, I think there's a huge percentage that still just don't think about it. They just go to the normal traditional ways. And if you're lucky with your pet, you kind of like, why do anything else? I mean, my sister's one of those that, hell, she doesn't do anything except feed kibble, and she's had 12, 14 dogs who live to be 17 years old. I mean, one of those rare kind of cases. So it's hard for her to justify spending extra money on, real food, which you and I talk about a lot, is the fact that kibble is not your best choice. And we've talked about that before, and you certainly can see Dr. Smith or see Fallon or see Stacy at Nutrition World to discuss the whys of that, because you need to know the whys. We're not just saying, oh, buy this product. No, there's reasons behind that. And so real quickly, I got about 2 minutes. Stacy asked me about the controversy surrounding something with 3 letters that had to do if a dog doesn't eat kibble, it can cause heart something, DSW or something.
Oh yeah. So there's a heart problem.
Okay.
So it's dilated cardiomyopathy,
Okay.
DCM. And what they have found is, in the very beginning, 2 veterinarians came out with a opinion piece. This is not a research paper, saying that certain diets cause DCM. 3 years later, the FDA came out and said, we looked at their data and found out that none of the diets coincided with what they said. So they're talking about grain-free or grained diets. First of all, the issue with DCM is taurine. Taurine is only found in meat. Has nothing to do with the grains or no grains. So they found out it was pretty much right down the line had to do with the genetics. And it is a genetic predisposition. There's certain breeds, Great Danes, Golden Retrievers, that get it. And that's exactly who was on those lists. The diets, they could not correlate any of the diets with it.
Cool.
So it's not a thing. They're still looking into it, but of course 3 years later when the FDA came out, and of course it's on the back page of the newspaper or whatever, so no one's going to read it. I still see, a lot of records from other veterinarians, and they say, oh, you shouldn't feed this because of the dilated cardiomyopathy, and I'm like, no, with a side of no.
Fear mongering.
Yeah.
All around it.
Yeah. And I know Stacy has said that people ask a lot about that. Well, thank you again, Dr. Smith, and at CHAI, CHAI. And again, what's your website?
It's ChattanoogaHolisticVet.com.
Okay, wonderful. Well, it is time to take a break. When we come back, we'll be having a lot more of those empowering tips for your health. That plus more to come as we continue. For Clint Powell, I'm Ed Jones, and stay with us.